Hello and welcome to episode 93 of Third and Wrong. I'm your co-host Steve Bolin, and with me as always is Austin Dowlonga. We're super fired up to bring Keon Raymond, former Calgary Stampeder, to the fold here. Keon, how's it going, man? It's Christmas season.
It's good, man. It's good. You know what? We got a bunch of snow today. So
Yep.
I'm buried inside the house. But other than that, things are good, man. I couldn't have it any other way but having a white Christmas. So that's the blessing.
There we go. No better time to be buried up inside your house and hop on a podcast. So obviously good time to do that. Keon, take us back, man. What got you into football? Just reading up on you from St. Louis, Missouri. So what kind of got you started in that direction?
You know what? I think it was my uncle. You know what I mean? My uncle, he was a football player in St. Louis. He played quarterback at one of the schools my wife graduated from. They're called the Sumner Bulldogs, and it was probably like the powerhouse of football in St. Louis. And he was a freshman quarterback, starting on the varsity team. And I was a kid. I was a kid at the time, but having coming to the games, watching the atmosphere, and like I wanted to play football. And so my dad ended up signing me up. I think I was 5 or 6. You start a little earlier back home, and no, I've been loving it ever since, though, man. I love the community that it brought. I love the family atmosphere, and one of the biggest things about it within the family atmosphere was my grandfather had passed away. During like my first year or two playing football, and my uncle's team. They all came to the funeral, man, and that really showed me kind of how big of a family football was. When you come together, depend on each other like that. So that was kind of my first kind of introduction to football. I was like, this is something I want to be a part of. And I was only a kid, but I was like, this is something I want to be a part of.
Man, that is something that would leave quite the impression on you. That's and to hear you're starting so young too. I mean, we'll get to it too, but talking about grassroots in Canada, that's obviously something that's not too common here, starting so young. So that's awesome.
So Keon, take us through then, as you're progressing through high school and college, were you aware of the CFL at all, or did you have your sights set on the NFL first and that was kind of the main goal? Or when did this all start to come to fruition for you as far as, taking your talents to the pro level?
You know what? I kind of always wanted to play professional football. That was kind of always a goal and a dream. When did I learn about the CFL? I think when I got to my senior year in college at Middle Tennessee. That's when I first learned about the CFL. I think we had one of our pro days, and the Edmonton Eskimos had a scout that came out. And I was like, who is that team? Is that the Packers? You know what I mean? And you don't know, you know what I mean? But and then that was kind of the first kind of whiff what I had about the CFL. And I didn't even know much about them then, because I ended up, after I went and played with the Tennessee Titans from college, I played arena football, and then that's when I started to kind of hear about the CFL a bit. It was a couple of guys that played arena football. They called it double dipping. So they play arena football from February to June, and then they go after that season and go to the CFL and play from July to the end of the CFL season. And so I had an opportunity to do that one time. I played two football leagues in 1 year. In 2008, we won the Grey Cup that year. But man, that was a lot of football. That was a lot of football, man. And I don't encourage anybody to play that much football.
I was gonna ask, is that pretty hard on your body, man? Like that's gotta wear you down.
Yeah, it did, because I was a starter. I played for the New Orleans Voodoo. We were owned by the New Orleans Saints, and I started off I think 16 games that we had, and it's a close game. The field's 50 yards, and it's a lot of hitting. It's a lot of running on that hard turf that we had, and so I actually, once I finished the season, I had got the high school coaching job, the head coach of high school in Tennessee. And that's what I ultimately wanted to do, was coach football, high school football. And now I got this job, and now I got a buddy of mine. His name's Pedro Holiday. And, the Calgary Stampeders, Chris Jones. I don't know if you guys know Chris Jones. He's coaching with the Browns now, and was with the Rough Riders for a bit in Edmonton. But yeah, he just kept calling me, man, talking about something. You come on up to Canada, you know what I mean? I'm like, man, I just played the season, man. I don't even trying to play no football no more. But you know what? When you got good friends with you that, you know, you can seek wise counsel and understand, you know what I mean, the benefits that you bring to the table and things like that, want to look out for your best interest. He was like, Keon, man, you need to go to Canada. You're a football player, man. Like, you better go. And, you know, and I did. I went up to Canada. So, it's July. I'm expecting it to be snowing, you know, because all us Americans think it snows year round in Canada at the time. So, you know, but the thing about it, my first game when I came up to watch was the Stamps versus the Rough Riders. And I think the Rough Riders at that time was like 4 or 5-0 in 2008. Man, and I go into the stadium, I'm like, whose home is this? I couldn't believe it. You see so much green in the stands. Yeah. So that was kind of my first introduction to football. So I was like, up in Canada, I'm like, oh, this gonna be all right.
Did you look at any players to model your game after when you came up here, or was it just kind of trial by fire and you're at practice and you're kind of figuring out how you fit into the defensive scheme and everything?
You know what? The biggest thing when we came up, we had a couple guys who were playing very well. I don't know if you remember Brandon Browner.
Oh yeah.
He was a really big guy. But I watched the other teams, and a guy that I really liked who played well was Corey Banks. Oh man, he was a guy. He was all over the field. He was just a playmaker. And you know, and I watched him because when I came up, BC kind of had the secondary you wanted to model yourself after. You know what I mean? With Dante Marsh, Ryan Phillips, Corey Banks. They had Lamar Glover. They had Baron Miles. You know what I mean? So they are stacked, you know, in the secondary. So a young Calgary, you know, this defensive secondary, we're trying to figure it out. But Corey Banks was the guy when I watched him play, it was like, yeah, he's gonna be a Hall of Fame, and I want to make sure I play to the level that he plays at.
That's awesome.
So,
you had mentioned your time with the Tennessee Titans out of college there, and you went to the Arena Football League, as you mentioned, and then to the CFL. So I was just curious, what was it like acclimating yourself to the different leagues and the different rules that they each have, and the level of competition? What was that like for you?
You know what? When I came out of college, you know, and I was just like any other kid, man. When you go into the NFL, and it's like, man, you know what I mean? Can I play like this is a dream come true? You know what I mean? As a kid, you watch it, you finally get a chance to put that helmet on and that jersey that has that shield on it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a dream come true. And when I started to get out there, and like, you know, now granted, like, it seems like everybody in the NFL is probably about 3 inches taller than their regular position. You know what I mean? So if you got a linebacker who's about, you know what I mean, like 6'2", you know what I mean? He's probably about 6'5" in the league, you know?
Wow.
But what I did find out once I got to playing, it was, man, I could play with these guys. You know what I mean? Like, I went out to practice, man, and I just did what I did best. And I kind of coined the nickname in training camp. My nickname was Pick-a-Day Ray. So that was, you know, the media kind of gave me that nickname, and it was cool. It was crazy because all the even the veterans, they'd come to me, and it was kind of like a thing in training camp. You know, is Keon gonna get an interception today? And like literally every single day I would get an interception. I don't know, it was by the grace of God. I don't know, but I just was playing true to technique, playing ball, you know what I mean, and had the opportunities to make a play. But even with that going into the Arena Football League, it's a lot of guys who played in CFL or NFL. And my mindset was, man, football is football. You know what I mean? You have to learn the rules. I think that's the biggest thing, learning and understanding the rules first. And if you can play, you can play. And once you understand those rules in regards to how the game is played, I mean, it's easy. And I think the Arena Football League allowed me to equip myself to come up to Canada, because they have the waggle in the Arena Football League. So I knew how to guard guys running at the line, and it was a lot easier, you know what I mean, once I came up to the CFL.
That's awesome. So a little bit of that double dipping paid off for you then, in more ways than one.
Just a bit.
Talking about the Tennessee Titans, I just wanted to touch on that real quick. You went undrafted, but they ended up signing you. I was just kind of wondering what the draft process looked like for you in the scouting process. What was that like? Were you always projected to kind of be an undrafted rookie, or how did that work from the player standpoint?
Yeah, you know what? Me coming from one of those, I guess, a mid-major school, Middle Tennessee, and us not having a really good record. I think we were like 4-6 my senior year, so we didn't even get a chance to go bowl, and that was the reason why I wanted to go to a Division I school, because I wanted to go to a bowl. You know what I mean? And we didn't get a chance to go in the 2 years that I was there. But it was one where I played. My senior year, I played the most. I started all 11 games my senior year, which really gave me an opportunity for NFL scouts to take a look at me. Now, granted, me running a 4.3 40 on pro day really helped out. Once we got going. And I think honestly, if I would have played, a solid 2 years at Middle Tennessee, I probably would have been drafted. I just needed somebody to take a chance on me. But even getting a free agent offer for somebody to come down, to Grace, it was a blessing. In itself. I remember on draft day, I think it was second day. They had 2 days when I was coming. Now it's 3 days. But I remember the Kansas City Chiefs called me, and in the 5th round, they'll say, you know what, Keon, we're going to take you in the 5th round with our next pick. Now I'm like, so now I'm excited. You know what I mean? So, dude, I tell you, man, it comes up. Kansas City pick comes up. They drafted a cornerback from Miami, Marcus Maxey. I was devastated. I couldn't believe it, man. I was like, you got to be shitting me. You know what I mean? So, like, what was the point of going through that call, if you guys want to go take me? So
that's crazy.
But
the audacity.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. So, but which was even crazier was that in 2009, Marcus Maxey, I think he got cut and he came up to the Stamps. And so I got a chance to see, I got a chance to see who got drafted above me. And I tell you what, man, no disrespect to this guy, man, but this guy couldn't hold my jockstrap. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't hold me, man. And I was like, you know what, man? And that's when you kind of look at those things in that scouting department, where they look at, where, he comes from the University of Miami. No matter how well he played or if he started or not, a lot of those scouts tend to take the school they represent from, thinking that, guys are better because they come from a more kind of profound school or a bigger school, one of these Power 5 schools. And when you get a kid, like my thing is you've seen this year, Stephen, it's about heart, when play. And if I can see you on film, and when you play and you display heart and the effort that you display when you're out there on the field, I could care less who you playing against. You know what I mean? If you show that every single day, every single time that you step out on the field and you're hands above, can show that you're one of the better athletes out there, man, I'm taking a chance on you. But, they did, man. That's why, some of those guys, get paid what they get paid. But, it gave me a little peace of mind when he came up. And I was like, they drafted this guy for me. They're lost.
That's crazy. I can't believe they called you just to do that to you. That's just robbery.
You know what, man? Because my wife, we're in college. She put together this whole draft board. I'm talking about, man, we had first round we just did all DBs and corners and see who was going, and we were putting all this stuff together, you know what I mean? And I think Fred Bennett ended up getting drafted the same year I played with Fred. He ended up getting drafted the actually same year when I came out too. But yeah, and I just, man, I couldn't believe it, man. But to each his own, and I think I had a pretty successful career anyway, man, in Canada, and I enjoyed my time up here anyway playing. So
absolutely, everything happens for a reason. I'm I gotta say this, as a Patriots fan, I'm not too fond of the new hype that the Chiefs are getting, so I haven't been very fond of them at all. And hearing this story just makes me dislike them even more. So that's just more fuel to my fire, to my hatred for the Chiefs here.
There we go, man. This podcast hereby is cursing the Chiefs, the third and wrong curse.
So there's a little bit of rivalry there, and I want to segue over to the rivalries in the CFL that you've experienced, Keon. What would you say was the most fiercest rivalry in your time as a Stampeder? Would it be the Rough Riders or the Eskimos, or another team?
Rough Riders. No, absolutely Rough Riders. Absolutely the Rough Riders, man. Edmonton, probably maybe my last 2 years or so when Chris Jones kind of came. But, we smacked Edmonton around. We smacked them up and down. I think it was to a point, I think we had beat them 14 times straight. You know what I mean? But Saskatchewan, when they had Darian Durant, Weston Dressler, Chris Getzlaff, they had Wes Cates, then they came with Corey Sheets. It was just always one of those games, man. And the rivalry would be in the playoffs because we'd get them. We smack them around during the regular season. You know what I mean? And it was just the atmosphere of playing against the Rough Riders, man. Whether it's in Regina or in Calgary, people coming out. It's going to be loud. It's going to be they're going to be obnoxious. But I can say I'm probably one of the only guys that silenced 40,000 fans in Regina at Mosaic Stadium. I remember I picked off Darian Durant and ran it back. I set a Stamps record, ran it back 117 yards. And you could hear a pin drop in the stadium, except for the Calgary Stampeders fans that was yelling and pointing all at the Rough Riders and giving them a hard time. But it was those are one of the best rivalries that that I enjoy. It was hands down the Riders.
I neglected to tell KJ this, Kamar Jordan, when we had him on, but I grew up a Rough Riders fan. My dad was born in Saskatchewan, so it was the way it was. But those are probably some of my favorite games, watching those, the battles between the Calgary and Saskatchewan. And I even go as far as saying that rivalry is probably even more intense than the Saskatchewan-Winnipeg one. I think they're pretty close, if anything. So it was cool to hear you say that, because I think I was hoping you would say it would be Calgary-Saskatchewan, because it's always felt like it watching those games as opposed to Edmonton-Calgary.
Yeah, Edmonton, man. They're just a team up the street.
There you go. I love that. Speaking of KJ, we asked him on our interview last month, what made Calgary so consistent over the last decade. And he really spoke to the culture and the consistency you guys have from, management right down through to the players, and really growing that consistent crop of talent of players and coaches coming up through the ranks. I want to kind of switch it up a little bit. In the last 2 years of your career, you had the opportunity to play with Toronto and Hamilton. How are these different organizations different from team to team as far as their team culture and how they're run? And, could you even compare that to, your time in Arena League? Like, is there a lot of variance in between the setup of those teams culture wise, or is it not as different as many of us think?
You know what? I think there's a big difference. And I learned that my first year in Toronto, and a lot of it stems from leadership. From top down, me playing under John Huffnagel for 8 years in Calgary, you really got an opportunity to see, what leadership was about, being the head coach of just a leader of men, you know what I mean? And he took that job, he took that job to heart. And he was probably one of the best coaches, especially head coaches that I've ever had. And for 8 years, I sat in the front. 8 years, Smitty sat right in front of me, and I sat in the second seat behind. So we literally sat right in front, with Coach Huff whenever he talked. And you got a chance to see how he handled certain situations, whether it was players, whether it was things that was guys were going out, whether it's us losing a tough game, whether, we had a game ahead that we needed to focus on. His mind was always on from a player standpoint and how we can achieve those things. And when I went to Toronto, it was a different culture. You know what I mean? It was a kind of like every man for himself kind of deal. You know what I mean? And you started to see, why teams win and why teams lose. The facilities weren't the best, but that has nothing to do, nothing to do with it. Because I played in the arena, man, and we didn't have the best facilities. But, the culture, what you build a football program around, it relates to a lot of the guys who you bring in, and the leadership that guys have been, and being able to come together. Like we hung tight together in Calgary. And in Toronto, you don't hang as much, and even when I went to Hamilton, I don't think I spoke to the head coach. I was there for about 4 days. I didn't speak to the head coach till like the 5th day. I had to go in and introduce myself. I'm like, hey, coach, Keon Raymond here. He's like, hey, how's it going? He never addressed the team, So wow. You started to see why teams win and why teams lose, and I think honestly, as much as I didn't want to leave Calgary, it was really good for me to see as a professional, as a man, as a leader, and one day as a coach, because you see how you want to run a program. You see what to do and what not to do. You know what I mean? If you've always seen the same thing your whole life, you become blinded, you know what I mean, about, you know, the other things, you know what I mean, that you possibly, you know, come array. But I mean, there's a definitely different culture shock, you know what I mean? And Calgary's built one of the best ones, you know what I mean, over the past decade.
Keon,
That's
you
awesome.
mentioned the culture kind of comes from the leadership. I'm just kind of curious on your thoughts. You had mentioned the coaches. I'm just wondering how high up, like, are you talking ownership, leadership, or is it general manager, or is it just the coach and then from there down?
Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of it deals with general manager to head coach. You know what I mean? Even to position coaches, offensive coordinator. Like it trickles all the way down. You know what I mean? And then it comes from the leaders that you have in your locker room. I mean, we've always had really good leaders in the locker room where guys, like I was always a guy where, you know what I mean, I wasn't a guy who'd always just, you know, talk the talk, but I was always willing to walk the walk. And a lot of guys, and because I remember when KJ came in, he was a rookie, man, he was a baby. You know what I mean? We used to we used to give him a hard time. You know what I mean? But you know, but I knew he'd be a good player though. You know what I mean? Because he came in and he worked hard. Even Eric Rogers, like I knew it. These guys would come in, but they came in humble. They came in ready to work. And when I go to a place like Toronto, you know, or in Hamilton, you get young guys who come in and they feel like they're already at the pendulum. You know what I mean? They're like, man, I'm here. What is this CFL? And you got a guy like KJ who came play with the Vikings. You know what I mean? So he was humble. He was quiet. He understood where he needed to be, where he needed to work at. But it's hard to jump on a team, you know, when you're winning, you know, 13, 14, 15 games a year. You know what I mean? It's hard to jump in and be like, oh, okay, I'm the man. But when you winning 3, 4 games a year, you can kind of tell these guys ain't that good. I can probably come in and make a little noise. But yeah, that's kind of, you know, what it is in the most. I think it stems from a lot of those trickle downs though. And I think everybody has to be on that same page, you know, from those GM bringing the right guys in and the head coach knowing how to lead those guys, and the head coach allowing his position coaches and his coordinators to do their job, you know. And it's you know, it's like a car motor, baby. Everything got to work together for it to run right. So, you know.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really well said, and how all those integral pieces really work together to create such a successful franchise that Calgary has been over the last decade plus. Speaking more on Calgary itself, Keon, you've really settled into here post-retirement, and we're going to speak on your ventures just a little later on. But what got you to stay? So obviously you went to Toronto and Hamilton, but you really set up some strong roots here in Calgary. Was there ever any thought to go back to the States, or what was it about Calgary that, you know, really made you want to plant your roots here?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it wasn't the snow. You know what? I think the biggest thing was, you know, me and my wife. We have any kids. You know, they've grown up here and been in school. And me and my wife, as we were kids, you know, we moved around quite a bit. You know, she lived in California, Oklahoma, Illinois, and St. Louis, and me, I lived in Seattle. Lived a little bit in back to St. Louis, you know what I mean? So we traveled around quite a bit, and we just wanted to get to a point where our kids could have a place to call home just for a moment in time. And so and then I kind of started to get into the football. You know, I wanted to coach, but you know, I tried to get you know, whether it was a CFL job here or scouting, you know what I mean? I actually scouted a bit for the Ticats, you know, and you try to find, you know what I mean, like the best fit for you and what you can do. And so yeah, we just, you know, we started to kind of understand, you know, what the need was in the city. And I wanted to be involved in football and helping growing the game. And so I said, you know what, let's stay here and let's try to figure out a way that we can do that.
Oh, that's awesome. And I guess let's talk about your ventures now, because you mentioned about, you know, what the needs are here in Calgary, and, you know, we can even say Alberta and Canada further as a whole, but you launched K25 Sports, and you know, underneath that's the big time 7-on-7 league where we had the pleasure of meeting and working together. And so what went into starting those ventures, and how much work was that to undertake such a task?
Well, you know what, man, it was a lot. But I think the biggest thing when we started, you know, I wanted to I grew up in a place in St. Louis. We had this place called the Matthew Dickey Boys and Girls Club, where you can go, you play football, you ran track, you played baseball, You played basketball, and it was just a club where you could do all sports. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. We also created with the K25 Sports, and we started off with basketball. We started off with youth basketball, man, which has been really successful for us. I got one of the former players from the UFC. His name is Cooper Hamlick. He was a point guard for the Dinos, and he's a program director in our basketball program. And it kind of built from there. And I was like, how do I get into this football realm? And so I did a little bit of research on the 7-on-7 game and kind of see how popular it was in the US. And I was like, I wanted to be able to do something that allowed kids to take a break from football, but continue to develop in football. And when I came up here, I've never heard this thing about the spring football. This is midget football, where kids, they play tackle football in the spring, and then they play their tackle football in the fall. And for me, I was like, man, that's way too much tackle football for any kid. You know what I mean? It's too much. So I was like, well, what do they do in the US? So the 7-on-7. So I was like, well, what we'll do. I started, I think it was 2018, the spring. And, I think I had maybe 15 or 20 kids come out, man. We were at SATE. And, dude, I'll tell you what, I didn't know what I was doing, man. I just like 7-on-7 league, tried to do what I did this fall. And so you see how this fall was 3 years ago. No go. But like, I had kids come out. They enjoyed it. We got a chance to play. I got a chance to coach them up. We had a good time. It was actually, I think it was 3 kids from our program. Danny was one of the first kids, McMullen. Danny's one of the first. Yeah, he was one of the first kids that came out and signed up for it. And he's the longest, and he's probably the only kid that's been in this program the longest. Him and you can kind of see the maturation of him as a player anyway. But like, it was one of those things like, what, let's develop it. Let's have some fun. And then that fall, we had a tryout, and I had about 40 to 50 kids come out, and they tried out for a team. And I took them to the States. That was our first 7-on-7 team. So we went to Seattle, we went to Portland, we went to Bellingham. We did 3 tournaments, which was really good. They got a chance to see how the kids in the States play. Like, we can play with them, and they kind of like propelled what we were doing. And I was like, man, this is something that's, kids, it's needed. Kids enjoy, they don't have to take as much as much as contact, just from playing football, but it's fun though. And it helps the skill development. You've been out there, man, just the atmosphere is just bananas.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, kids learn so much at a quicker rate playing in the 7-on-7 game, and I think we've had probably like 10 to 12 kids just from the program have gotten college scholarships. Now, I'm not saying that our 7-on-7 game was was the main focus of why they got scholarships, but I can tell you it definitely helped to attribute to, them, developing their skills and getting better. But even coming up to this fall, man, and being able to have the opportunity to, with no high school football, and to do the fall championship series and to get the response from it, man, like, this was something that I could have never imagined would have worked out as well as it did this year, and I'm grateful and humbled by our coaches that gave their time, the players, the parents, everybody involved, to make it a success this year. And like, I can only see big things coming from this, and kind of see how the future is working with it. So we got some big news for January 2021, amidst this whole COVID thing. And, I'll give you guys a bit of a sneak peek what's kind of coming up. But we've teamed together with a bunch of these 7-on-7 teams across the country and Canada to create our own association. And we'll have our first 7-on-7 national championship in June here in Calgary.
That's unreal, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so you guys are the first ones to hear that. So,
yeah, there we go, man.
Breaking news.
I appreciate that.
I guess you could say we've made it the big time.
Big time, baby. Yeah, let's go. That's really exciting, man. That's the energy there was just something I've never experienced before in my short time coaching or even playing high school ball, like with the music playing and just having the allure of having CFL current and former there coaching as well, just like really brought the energy levels up. I can only speak for KJ, but even like looking across the sideline and seeing other ones there and how they were dealing with their players and firing them up, it was just like, it went by so fast. It was just such a amazing experience. And I can only imagine what it was like for the kids too, that's just top notch stuff.
Yeah, Steve, the thing that I really enjoyed about it is that it's a way to grow the game faster, in bigger increments, but smaller and smaller sections. Like you can get a team in Medicine Hat 10 players. You know what I mean? And you can get a dad who coaches, and they'll learn so much more from understanding how to. When KJ was gone, you guys had to break down, run offense concepts, adjust. You know what I mean? Like as a coach, like there was a lot that was put on your plate, but I can guarantee you learned so much in that span of time, in that 25 minutes that you guys had. All right, let's go here. This corner sinking. Let's make sure we attack here. Just the communication in the game of our kids and our coaches understanding the concepts and how to evaluate things at a quicker pace. Like the learning curve is so quick. And that's why I like the game. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, I think this will probably be the rebirth of football in Canada here within the next couple of years.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, man. That fires us up for sure.
That kind of touches on the next question that I had about grassroots, but I just wanted to add before moving on. I just read up. I didn't get the experience of working with you guys up in Calgary there, but I did just read up on it before this interview, and I saw that the some of the rules, like the quarterback has to throw within 4 seconds and things like that. I really like that aspect of it because it takes it away from moving towards more of like a backyard style of football where like you don't really have those fundamentals to kind of learn. I really like that aspect that you keep it very kind of rigid in the sense that it's still meant to be for kind of the development of the players in those skill positions and the quarterback position too. Being able to dissect the defense and stuff like that in a quicker time frame rather than just running around and just trying to get open. So
my thing, even with doing this, man, was to, like, I was on the executive board for the Canadian Football Players Association, and the biggest thing, the argument that I guess the Canadian versus American thing was about the ratio. You know what I mean? And even talks with the league and them maybe wanting to take some of the ratio out, and a lot of Canadian players wanting to keep the ratio so they can keep jobs, things like that. And for me as a competitor, my mindset was like, well, why don't we just make the players here better? You know what I mean? And then they can compete, you know what I mean? And then that makes the game better. And then we have to worry about who plays it. Because if we make better players, skill players, because my kids you see one in the States right now, Chuba Hubbard. Like, come on now. You're like, this is a Canadian kid, from Edmonton. I mean, he's up for the Heisman Trophy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that kids up here that can't play. It's the opportunities that they're given, And so, my goal is like, what, if we can get one of the first Canadian quarterbacks from our 7-on-7, game to come up here and be a starter, not just a starter, but one of these homegrown kids where like this kid was born in Canada and he's played here. Now he's a CFL star, and you get an opportunity for him to go out and do play football at the highest level. So it's like I said, it's one of those things where it's just making sure that we can get everybody better. And like I said, those 4 seconds, man, I mean, if you coached any football here, Steven, man, usually up here, it's a passing game. But in high school, if you got a good running back, they spread everybody out and they just hand it to the kid to the ball all the time, and he runs off, you know what I mean? Instead of allowing the game to progress and everybody get an opportunity to touch the ball and receivers get better and things like that. So, yeah, I was excited that kids had an opportunity to catch the ball.
That's what it comes down to, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, pitch and catch, baby.
That's awesome, Keon. And so you mentioned trying to get these kids opportunity and try to develop the talent here in that sense. So I guess that might answer this question fully. I'll ask the question and maybe you can expand on it a little bit more. But what do you hope is different or improved in the years upcoming at the grassroots level in Canadian football in terms of growing the game?
You know what? I think what I hope is that I think the football community learns how to work together. I think that's the biggest part from, my short experience and time having to deal with it. I think there's a lot of there's like the football. Think about it as spider, the football being the body of the spider, and every entity is a leg, and so none of those legs touch each other. They don't want to work together, but they just want to use the common theme of football. And I think, like whether it's Football Alberta, the Bantam Association, the Pee Wee, or the high school, that everybody learns how to work together accordingly, where they don't feel like, people are taking players from them, but we're ultimately growing the game, as one, as together. And how can we get more kids to pick up a football instead of a soccer ball or maybe a hockey stick? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to get kids not to pick up a hockey stick, but a soccer ball. You know what I mean? But a soccer ball. And that's why I like the 7-on-7 game, because that's all you need is a football. You take the rules that we have and you get out there, man, and you a bunch of your friends, and you go out there and you throw the ball, and you got 4 seconds to throw the ball, and everybody knows it. And you go out there and you play. Whereas, if you do flag, you have to, the equipment that has to come with it, and everybody just don't have those things, And so just even my short conversation with the president of Football Canada, he mentioned to me that they're even looking at 7-on-7 as being an Olympic event in 2028. So
wow.
I mean, yeah. So we may have a bit of an edge here, Team Canada, baby.
There we go, man. Love it.
Awesome.
We just had Jim on a month and a half ago, and he was talking about trying to get those entities to work together. So it's cool to see. Mm-hmm. It's cool to hear it from different people within the football community. That's really encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. And hopefully we can continue to build up that talent pipeline and just kind of feed one into the other, like you're kind of alluding to there, Keon. I wanted to ask about this, if it's all right with you, Keon. So there is an article on 3 Down Nation talking about an unsuccessful bid to become the CFLPA president. So I was just wanting to get your experience from that and just kind of see what that whole process was like being on the inside there.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, man, it was, it was a long process. It was one that I think the guys who voted really didn't see and understand the passion and the vision that I kind of had for it, which is okay. You know what I mean? And I've learned, you know what I mean? Some people are not able to step into, you know what I mean, the future or what you see, you know what I mean? And so, which is fine. And there's a lot of politics involved with it. And, I'm not mad at, that the guys for voting, and it has always kind of been that way. And even when I got up, man, I went up and I gave a speech, that I wrote out and told guys, that, for the league to get better, for our players association to get better, we have to stop using these politics. And I said, man, you guys sit in those seats because players chose you guys to sit in those seats to do what's best, for them in the league, and so I go up and I give them a presentation and kind of what the plans that I look for. I mean, the other guy didn't, you know what I mean? But, to each his own, you know what I mean? I think it was a blessing in disguise, because the amount of stuff they had to go and deal with in regards to the whole COVID thing, which probably would have took a lot of my focus away from, my business at K25 Sports and the big time players, and which I was, I was gladly, because of the success we had this year, just in a branding standpoint and having the opportunity to market it and get it out, I'm talking about second to none, and so for me to have to take that weight, as much as I love, the guys that kind of sit in the in that meeting room, man, I think that time has passed, for me, and which is all right, with me. And, I'll go and do what I do best, develop businesses and be as successful as I was on the football field. So
that's a great attitude to have.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Keon. That was kind of off the cuff, so I appreciate you.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I tell you what, man. I when I lost in Vegas, so I flew down to Vegas, and I go, man, and I do this whole spiel, and and it was a lot of politicking going on. You know what I'm saying? And guys were like, they knew who they were going to vote for. They even heard me speak, but which is all right. And I left that, man. And I wish those guys the best of luck, man. I said, you know what, man? They is not about to spoil my time. I'm in Las Vegas. I'm about to go have a good time.
There you go, man. That's the only way to do Vegas.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
I had
that was
a good
right before
time.
the pandemic shut everything down. So I bet you had a real good time.
Yeah, man.
I had a good time.
That's good. So I guess as we start to wrap this up, you've obviously dipped your toes in a lot of football waters, whether it's with your own business there with K25 Sports, the CFLPA board, the CFL itself, the Arena Football League, etc. Out of all those experiences that you have, Keon, what's the greatest lesson that football has taught you out of all that?
You know what? Wow, that's a good question. You know what? I think one of the greatest lessons that I've learned in football was that, you know, it's never over. You know what I mean? Like, if there's still time on the clock, maybe the game is never over. You know what I mean? You still have a chance. You still have a shot. And I try to live my life, you know, that way, whether it's, you know, it's me being a dad, me being a husband, you know, me being a coach, me being a mentor, you know, even working with my coworkers. You know, I try to have that same attitude, you know, that I attack each and every game with, when I stepped on the field, with grace, with humility, with understanding, with some ferociousness, but with compassion, you know, and understanding that, you know, man, I'm gonna fight to the end until, you know, I got, you know, my last breath comes out of this body, and knowing that I gave everything that I got, man. I've always been known as a man of faith, and I've tried my best to live my life in accordance to that, and allowing, you know, people to see the light that I've been given, that, you know, God has blessed me with, and, you know, and I try to show, and I try to live by that thing, and I'm nowhere near perfect, but I try my best to show, and you know, to give people opportunities that I wish I had, or that I wanted to available to me, and if I can do something to help somebody out, man, I'm always open, I'm always available, you know what I mean, and I'm always willing. So that's kind of what I take from football. I know it's probably a long answer.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. But football is just it's been such a blessing to me, and I'm just glad I still have an opportunity to be close to the game.
That's awesome, Keon. And no, it's not a long answer. You know what? I think what Zach, Steve, and I all appreciate is that all the answers seem to be a little different, and it's really fascinating, and just it really kind of makes us appreciate football that much more, that we've experienced that being on teams, and we've taken our own lessons from it, but hearing everybody else's perspectives on it as well, like it really is fascinating to me, and I do appreciate you sharing that with us. So thanks.
Absolutely. I got to get me a Christmas sweater, man. I've been lunch.
You got the Big Time Players brand, man. That's a good.
That's
a good look. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, we got Christmas sweaters of the Big Time Players. That'd be an idea.
Yeah.
There we go.
We're gonna put that in the
That's some branding right there.
Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna have to send you guys some shirts too. Especially you and Madison. I'm gonna have to get you some. I'm gonna have to get you some gear. Appreciate you guys, man.
Fantastic.
Oh, thanks, man. That's awesome. And we actually we've teamed up with Devin and Lang as well. They're men's apparel company, and we'll make sure we return the favor as well. So
okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Sir. Yeah. Some perks are coming on small podcasts like ours, man. But we're just trying to grow like you, so it's much appreciated.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, I'm glad I could help out.
Yes, sir. Last question, Keon. It's one of our most important. And we ask all our listeners, do you put ketchup on your craft dinner and or macaroni and cheese?
What? What? Ketchup?
Yeah, man.
Hell no.
Oh man.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna tell you what. Whenever you get a chance, you know what? You have to taste my wife's baked macaroni and cheese. It's like a Southern style, and you cannot disrespect it by putting ketchup on it. Now, what I did put ketchup on that I've never had ketchup on before was a grilled cheese sandwich.
Okay, yeah.
I've never had ketchup on it, and one of my Canadian friends said, you need to try ketchup on this. And it's probably one of the best grilled cheese sandwiches I've ever had.
Okay.
Ketchup, so no mac and cheese, but a grilled cheese.
Okay, we got some common ground there. I'll take that.
Yeah. While you send those shirts down to Medicine Hat, maybe send some of your wife's mac and cheese too.
Yeah, she got mad at me. I call it B's mac and cheese. So
that's awesome, man.
I'm sure coming up to Canada, you've understood that Canadians love their ketchup. So ketchup chips and all, and ketchup on craft dinner, add it to the list.
Oh man, I may try it now. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say I haven't done it, but I may try it now.
Okay, don't
maybe a little.
Don't try it on your wife's mac and cheese. If you're just
No.
having like a box of Kraft dinner, I don't want to disrespect your wife or nothing.
Yeah.
Just have it on plain old Kraft dinner. That's it.
I can do that. I can do that.
Keon, first of all, I want to say, I don't know why I was saying K25 Sports. It's K25 Sports. And on that note, where can everyone find your work, you personally, on social media, as far as the different things you got going on in your life right now?
Yeah, well, we got a couple of social media sites, man, especially if, any kids that are looking to get into any of our football programs. We got it on Instagram. We're heavy on that one at Big Time 7v7. And then we do have a K25 Sports and Instagram as well. Or you can follow me personally at Mr._Raymond25, on Instagram as well, and Keon Raymond at Facebook. So, but if you had any more questions about our site or what we do within our football program, it's K25sports.com. So, it's been a blessing to kind of get those things going, and I didn't know where football would be, once I stopped playing, and what life would be like afterwards. But I tell you what, man, I'm starting to enjoy the journey that God has put me through, and being able to turn these next pages to kind of see and kind of what this next chapter looks like for me.
That's awesome, man. And for our listeners, we're going to link all that in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your phone. Just be sure to go down to the show notes, tap on the link. It'll take you right to the page. And Keon, thank you so much for your time, man. This won't be the last time I'm sure we have you on. Definitely want your insight, as the CFL season approaches, as U Sports season approaches, as the spring league hopefully gets going on again, if we can put COVID, or at least put it at bay for now. So really excited to have you back on in the near future.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe.
Thank you. We actually don't do that enough at the end of our episodes. We don't push our listeners enough. Yeah, thank you, man. We're gonna start doing that. Yeah.
Awesome. There we
Thanks,
go.
fellas. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care. Godspeed.
All right.